From the Mumbai studios of Republic TV, it's time for The Debate.
Debate at 9, powered by Sarah.
Good evening, my name is Niranjan and I'm filling in for Arnab Goswami, who will be back on The Debate in a few days, very, very soon. In fact, the gloves are off tonight as Twitter alleges intimidation and cites free speech. That's debate number 1. As both government and Delhi police throw the rule book at the social media platform. The gloves are off in the social media battle. We'll tell you all about that. And at 10 p.m, the Republic TV's dedicated broadcast, Reports from the Heart of India. We have committed to ensure we get you reports from every part of India on how we are battling the second wave, and that continues. Here are the headlines this Thursday evening. Face-off between government and Twitter is getting bigger as the platform issues a statement targeting the police, claiming intimidation. Government calling out free speech double-speak, citing examples of Twitter curbing free speech through opaque policies. There are not enough vaccines and all sides are fighting. BJP continues to face off with opposition over supplies, completely unnecessary. Arrested in Dominica, Antigua says Mehul Choksi should be sent back to India straight. Lawyer claiming foul play. Delhi police releases first picture of wrestler Sushil Kumar with a stick in hand, calls it evidence of crime. American President Joe Biden now setting a 90-day deadline for what many call conspiracy theories, the second investigation into the origin of COVID-19. Wuhan truth coming soon. Well, after Twitter alleged intimidation in a statement that was clearly aimed at the police on the issue of manipulated media tags, the government has responded this evening in a strongly worded statement in a blow-by-blow counter to the statement issued by the microblogging platform as baseless, false, and attempt to not just defame India but also play victim.
The Delhi police at Twitter offices on Wednesday to serve a notice to the India team of the social media intermediary. This incident over the toolkit face-off has triggered a larger fight, with Twitter India issuing a statement, taking on the Indian government and the Delhi police.
The government, even now, despite the deadline passing, wants to be seen to be following a certain process. This statement was occasioned by a Twitter statement suggesting that there is some concern about safety of their employees. The government has said that their employees are absolutely safe and that Delhi police had gone following a process only to serve notice, and that they have not even complied with the guidelines so far as giving a proper address is concerned.
The government, in a strongly worded statement, has said that protecting free speech is India's commitment and that it's not the prerogative of only a private for-profit foreign entity, while calling it an attempt to dictate terms to world's largest democracy. Government says Twitter was undermining India's legal system, refusing to comply, asking if Twitter was committed. Then why no mechanism in India on its own was in place? Concluding that statement of commitment not only sounds hollow but completely self-serving. Only Twitter is making a noise. Facebook has said it will comply. Indian intermediaries ask, what's the big deal?
The guidelines are truly in the favor of the users. So the users should be able to, lodge their complaint and get their redressal without any problem. And if it's standardized across all social media, it becomes easier, right? So I think it puts everybody on a level playing field, and it's very necessary.
Is it purely about guidelines or is it political?
The subjugation of free speech, the attempts to stifle every voice that is a dissenting voice against this government, and the state-sponsored fraudulent means to propagate and to instill fear continue unabated in Modi government.
The Congress is naturally worried about this toolkit emerging, and therefore to save face, they are using agencies in the few states that they are still relevant in to target our leaders.
Let's debate.
Well, none of the sides are backing off, including Twitter. In fact, the gloves are off. Let me introduce our panelists this evening. Sanju Verma, National Spokesperson of the BJP. Arvind Gupta, former CEO of MyGov. N.S. Nappinai, who's an advocate, Supreme Court, and founder, Cyber Sati. Srijit Panikar is a political analyst joining us live from Thiruvananthapuram this evening. Tausif Ahmad Khan, advocate, political analyst. Sarjan Puvaya, who's a senior advocate, Supreme Court, joining us live from Bengaluru. Varun Matthews, a lawyer specializing in technology and law, will be joining us live in some time from now. And AKashdeep Sabir, who's a filmmaker, joining us live from Mumbai. Now, going through the statement of Twitter for all our viewers joining us on the show. Twitter says they will continue to be strictly guided by principles of transparency, a commitment to empowering every voice on the service, protecting freedom of expression and privacy under the rule of law. But right now, they say they are concerned by recent events regarding their employees in India and the potential threat to freedom of expression for the people we serve. Now, both sides face questions, and Twitter facing more questions. And we spoke to another platform, in fact, this evening. Ku, the founder of Ku, was on the show, and he said, you know, this is such a simple procedure that doesn't take much time. In fact, he said it's not complicated at all. And then one wonders, why is it so complicated, Sanju Verma? If it is not so complicated, then why is Twitter not adhering to simple regulations like providing the grievance officer's name, address, contact details? Is it that complicated? Let's open that up. Sanju Verma can start, and then I'll let maybe Sarjan Puvaya respond to her.
Thank you, Niranjan. First and foremost, I want to touch upon the legality of the whole thing. You know, Twitter says that we cannot be bound by the rules and the legal system in India because Twitter India is just a subsidiary. It is Twitter Inc. based out of America, based out of the United States, which actually hosts content and is responsible for content spurious or otherwise. I want to ask one simple question to the audience, to the relevant people in Twitter, especially Manish Maheshwari, who claims he's just the India sales head. Excuse me, Mr. Maheshwari, you are the managing director of Twitter India, Twitter Communications India Private Limited, and the buck stops at your doorstep. So please stop filibustering and beating around the bush. Point number one, the government gave Twitter India a lot of time. The notification why new rules was issued on the 25th of February 2021. They had 3 months. They refused to set up a nodal officer, a resident grievance officer, and a compliance officer. So obviously they have undermined India's legal system. Point number two, you will be very surprised to know, Niranjan, that they are quoting the very section which have actually worked as a protective shield for them till now. Twitter India has been quoting section 79 of the IT Act because they say that we are not to be held criminally culpable or liable for any content under section 79. But that is precisely the point that Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad and the government of India have made, that now under the subordinate legislation, which will run concurrent to the primary IT Act of 2000, Section 79 will apply to any intermediary which has 50 lakh, 5 million or more followers, whereby you will be held, you as in Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, what have you, you will be held criminally liable for any defamatory post on your sites. Anything that is sexually pervert, anything that breaches the dignity of women, anything that runs contravention to the sovereignty, territorial integrity of India. So Twitter asks, who decides what is a threat to India's sovereign integrity? So I want to say through your channel, you do not need to dictate terms to the world's largest democracy. Article 5, 6 and 7 of the Indian Constitution clearly elucidate what constitutes a threat to sovereign integrity. And in any case, Article 19, which talks about freedom of speech, it clearly says there are reasonable restrictions on the grounds of public order, morality and health. Even Indian citizens do not have absolute free speech. So Twitter kya cheez hai? We Indians have to abide by the CRPC, by the IPC, we pay our taxes. Any company that is registered under the MCA or with the ROC has to play by the rule book. Twitter is registered under the MCA by February 20th, 2013. So excuse me, Twitter India, excuse me, Mr. Manish Maheshwari, do you have no accountability? Do you have no responsibility to your user base in India? And you keep monetizing this close to 1.75 crore user base that you enjoy in Twitter. Do you want to have this my way or the highway attitude? Excuse me, that's not going to work any longer. You've been given a long rope for way too long.
Okay. Let me allow Sajan Puvaya to respond to that. He's an advocate. Sajan, I just want to make one observation and I'll hand it over to you. Maybe you can help our viewers understand this better now. Now, the rules, we are told, and we've gone through some of the finer, blueprints of this new IT rules. And now they are to protect ordinary users who become victims of defamation, morphed images, sexual abuse, and the whole range of other abusive content which is in blatant violation of the law, to seek redressal on how to deal with all of this. But when you then say, okay, let Tausif respond to it. When you then say that it is potential threat to freedom of expression for the people we serve. Now, the whole point of this rule, Tausif, can you hear me? Okay, I lost the line with both Sajan and Tausif. Tausif, can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes. Go ahead. Yes,
okay, you can hear me. No, I was just reading the new rules because I lost the line with Mr. Puvaya there, so I was trying to put that question to you. Now, these rules, Tausif, are to protect users who become victims of defamation, morphed images, sexual abuse, and a whole range of other abusive content which is in blatant violation of the law, right? Now, when this is the intent, how can you then spin it and say that the rules are potential threat to freedom of expression for the people that you serve? Now you can speak about, the double speak on the rules itself. Tausif, and then maybe Srijit can come in.
See, first of all, we need to understand on what basis these rules have been made. These rules come out of the Information Technology Act 2000, which was passed in the year 2000. Now, any rule which is framed, and you and I both understand, and perhaps your viewers also understand, that rules are framed not by the Parliament, acts are framed by the Parliament. So, Information Technology Act 2000 was passed by the Parliament, which was framed by the Parliament, but the rules have been framed by the legislature. It's called the delegation of the power. Now, this rule has to be within the aegis of the primary law, which is the Information Technology Act. The question right now, the point of dispute, the point of contention, the whole fight right now today is about one provision of the rule, wherein the question is, when should the government, whether the originator can be identified and at what point of time? When a legal notice is served from that point onward, or from the period beyond the legal notice is served. So this is a legal and technical question which the court will consider after going through both sides of the story, after examining and analyzing the repercussion of the use or misuse of this rule, and whether this rule is ambiguous or unambiguous. But what we are seeing right now is there's a whole war going on in TV. Twitter is presented as if Twitter is New Pakistan. Oh, India will hate. Oh, India will win Twitter. Oh, Twitter is nobody. India is going to win. There is no question. Come on, wake up. India is a sovereign country. If India wants, India can very easily kick out Twitter out of India. India can cancel the license of Twitter and Twitter will become inoperable. But can India do that? Can India act as if it is a banana republic? Or will the government, the present government of India, have to act as if we are, the government of India also abides by the
Okay, thank you for giving us a... Tausif.
Everyone's rights should be protected.
Tausif.
Everyone's voice should be heard. Only pro-government voice will be heard and anti-government voice will not be heard. This is called banana republic.
Very interesting.
In a democratic setup,
One second.
anti-government voice will also be heard. What we are seeing today is on the pretext of...
Okay, hear me out, Tausif. Very long opening interventions.
Serving the anti-government voice.
Okay. No, Sanju, you can't come in. Hold on. Let me give others a chance. Tausif, you can't. Tausif, I got your point.
The question about right to free speech arises, and that is why this question is before the court.
No, one second, Sanju. I'm letting everyone speak, please. No, I let everyone speak. I request all of you to please keep your interventions short, please, so that everybody can speak. I want to come to Srijit. Srijit, thank you first of all, Tausif, for giving us an explainer of how these rules came about. But let me educate you also on how they came about, because there was wide consultations, including the intermediaries themselves were consulted, okay? I don't know whether you're aware of that, but they themselves have been consulted. Srijit is coming in. Arvind, I'm coming to you. Let Srijit make his point and then I'll come back to you.
Are you saying that rules were...
One second. I have not completed my question and let Srijit Panikar come in. Srijit.
Are you saying rules are
Oh, no, boss, listen to me. Tausif, don't jump the gun. I'll come back to you. Tausif, don't jump the gun. I'll come back to you.
Mr. Tausif Khan.
Tausif, hold on. Okay, Tausif, let Srijit come in. Hold on, there are other speakers, 6 of them who haven't spoken. I request you, Tausif. Okay, Srijit, look at this. Srijit. Rules have been finalized after widest possible consultations, including representations of social media, representatives of social media platforms. We know what happened in January, right? And the Ministry of Electronics and IT, and they put the draft rules in the public domain. Now, this has been there on the public domain since February. Please tell me, after 3 months, when it's ended, all this brouhaha, I mean, what was going on in the last 3 months? You agreed to them, right? You were part of the consultation process, weren't they?
Yeah, Niranjan, one of the interesting things is to check the genesis of it. It's a little different from what Mr. Tausif Khan has been saying, because there was a parliamentary Rajya Sabha ad hoc committee which had to give its view on the violence that happens on the social media against many topics, especially child pornography. So this was a 14-member committee of Rajya Sabha members. It was headed by Mr. Jairam Ramesh of Congress. There were 3 representatives from the Congress, including Ami Yarnik and Rajiv Gowda. There were 2 from the BJP and also a nominated MP. There were representations from Biju Janata Dal Unite, Aam Aadmi Party, you name a party, and it is there. NCP, JDS, AADMK, everyone was there. So the unanimous decision that they had made and the recommendation was given, which was tabled on the parliament, was that the first originator of all such messages which abuse womanhood, especially that promotes child pornography, has to be identified, and there has to be very stricter laws. They found that the current laws in the IT section, you can name multiple laws like 69, 79, all are there, but then these were not capable enough to stop this crime from happening. Now, following that, certain guidelines were formulated by the central government after due consultation with a lot of parties, all stakeholders involved, and then this was given for feedback from the public, and now 90 days has been elapsed. Now, the question here, the committee was headed by Mr. Jairam Ramesh of the Congress party, and now Congress has an entirely different opinion. That is the most surprising part. Everybody was there who said that the first originator was to be identified. Now, why was this first originator important? The first originator was important because the messages are forwarded multiple times. There are counters which are kept by all these people, especially the messaging platforms like WhatsApp. And on social media also, they wanted in section 4.4 very, very specific cases on which the users have to be tracked. And one of them was violence against women, rape, child pornography, anti-national things. These are the items. These are the items which primarily constitute a crime, and you can use your own good conscience and good sense to understand these are crimes. Now, for these, it's not curtailing, it's not curbing your freedom of speech, it's not against any post that you make about the Prime Minister, it's not your criticism of the BJP government, it's not criticizing saffronization, nothing of that qualifies. They're very clearly saying that they are talking about child pornography, rape, attack on women. These are the conditions. For this, if you have to find the first originator or if you have to book people under this particular act, what is stopping you from supporting this in the name of freedom of speech is my question.
Srijit.
And Twitter has been hearing this. For this, responsible people have to be there, right? There has to be a chief compliance officer. He has to comply. There has to be a nodal officer, because we know what happened in the tool case. The officers of the Delhi police had to go to multiple officers to serve notices on them. Now, if they had a compliance officer, this process would have been simple. Now, at the end of 90 days, you cannot come and say that, you know, I heard about a new law. Okay, I need time to comply with it. I am still thinking about it. This is actually going to threaten my employees, and it is going to put the business at stake. What sort of law is that, boss? No. You are living in India. You are bound by the conditions that are to be operated here. You have to follow them.
No, you have to. There's no. You have to. You have to. And let me tell you something. I want to go to Sajan. No, I want to. Tausif, don't derail it. I'll come back to you. Hold on. I'll come back to you. I have other panelists. I want to go across to them. I want to hear everyone. Tausif, I want to hear everyone. Tausif and Sanju, please pull back. Don't speak. Don't speak. See, don't speak. Please don't speak. Don't speak out of turn. Don't speak out of turn, okay? I'll give you an example. Hear me out. Sajan, one sec. Sajan, no, 1 second. Tausif, this is not fair. This is not fair, Tausif. It's very... Tausif, it's not done. It's not done. No, it's not done. Please don't speak out of turn. 1 second. I want to go to Sajan Puvaya on a serious subject. On a serious subject. Go, we'll just fix the windows. We just got the names wrong. I'll just fix the windows. I just got the names wrong on that. That's Tausif there in the third window. I'll just fix that. Sorry. Mr. Puvaya, you're in Bangalore. Yes. You're in Bangalore. I'll give you an example. This morning, okay, we got a story from two sources. I won't say who these sources were. But we got videos after the Assam police had put out a tweet saying that there is a horrible video doing the rounds. And the men in that video, and we couldn't even look at it, sir. It was very disturbing. I don't know whether you are aware of the story, but it was a case of rape, and the alleged rapists have been arrested in Bangalore. And the video has been doing the rounds in the last few days. And you tell me in a case like this, you're an advocate, it's a case of rape, right? Isn't it the right of our agencies to find out the trace or find out the origin of the video and look at the traceability of that video? And today when we're discussing about these rules, aren't these rules applicable for the case in point, Mr. Puvaya? And then I'll let Arvind Gupta come in. Yeah.
Absolutely. Niranjan, I think the level of this discourse must be really brought to what the law is today. What you have said now is absolutely right. A sovereign state wanting to investigate into a matter has every right to figure out what is the genesis of this information. Is it true? Is it not true? And if it is not true, who are the perpetrators? And they should be prosecuted on all methods known to law. But what's the question now? Why is this debate at this pitch? The question is not political. There are a set of rules. Those rules are in force. Every intermediary wanting to operate in this democratic republic has to comply with those rules. They have two options. Either challenge the rules, get an order of stay from a court of competent jurisdiction, or simply fall in line and comply with the rules. Now, what do the rules say? All that the rules say is that you will have certain officers who are designated and who are resident in the country. If there is an information which is given to you by a court order or by a governmental agency for that information to be taken down, you will take that information down within 36 hours and you will provide material that is basic information, maybe basic subscriber information to the investigating authorities so that they can investigate into the matter. That's all it is. Therefore, the question of whether Twitter is right, whether the government of India is bigger, Twitter is smaller, Google is bigger, is irrelevant. Let me just take one example. Take YouTube, for example. Every minute, there is 500 hours worth of video which is uploaded. Take Twitter, for example. Every day there are 50 crore tweets that are brought in. That is about 6,000 tweets a second. Now, what does the rule say? The rule says that if there is a particular direction issued to take down a particular tweet or to take down a particular video, you have to comply with that within 36 hours. That's all it says. And towards that, there is a chief compliance officer, there is a nodal officer. Now, what is the debate about today? It's not about whether investigation must go on or not. Whether intermediaries in this country have complied with these rules which are in effect from yesterday, or have they not? What happens if they don't comply? If they don't comply, they lose their status as an intermediary. They do not have the safe harbor where they will not be prosecuted. They will simply be prosecuted under the law, which means the law will take its course. You will launch prosecution against these intermediaries. They will defend themselves. A court will decide what to do. So let's not take the debate to or the dialogue to a level where, oh, if an intermediary can't comply, they are actually competing against India. How dare they not comply? I think that is irrelevant. The situation is, if an intermediary, whoever that intermediary may be, if they don't comply with the rules or they do not have a protective order from a court, the law enforcing agencies can launch prosecution and prosecute them, period.
Yeah. Arvind wanted to come in. Arvind, when the Ministry of Electronics says, Arvind. Can I make a point and toss it to you? I'm tossing it to you. Today, the government says in its strongly worded response that lawmaking and policy formulations is the sole prerogative of the sovereign, and Twitter is just a social media platform and it has no locus in dictating what India's legal policy framework should be. Now, I don't understand what is wrong with it, because they wouldn't argue with the same in, let's say, in the USA or in the UK or in Canada, right?
So the problem, I think, is that Niranjan, is that what my previous panelists said, a lot of that is correct. I think Srijit explained the whole process. And I've been part of the process, by the way. I'm probably the only person here who has participated in these consultations when I was in the government. And I can tell you many consultations have taken place, both from the direct representatives, their lawyers, and their surrogates. The surrogates sometimes used to crowd the room more than
Twitter included?
The principals.
Twitter included?
All of them. I mean, I don't have the attendance sheet, but all of them included. They pay a lot of these think tanks a lot of money to go and raise voices on their behalf. Now, the question really is, there were 10 different compliances, let's say. The open defiance of all these platforms, including Twitter, has been that they've not even bothered to answer 10 questions. If they have a problem, if you're a child and going to an examination and you know the 9 answers, you'll give the 9 answers. What they have said is, we don't know the 9 answers. We know the 9 answers, but we're not willing to give those 9 answers. The 10th one also we do is the contentious one, and because of that, we're going to say everything is wrong. And this is the open defiance companies like platforms like Twitter have done not only today, but have been doing it for long. This has been going on with WhatsApp since 2018. This whole thing of origination has started because Supreme Court mandated a parliament discussion, which on the floor of the House, the minister then, Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad, assured the House that they will look into it. There's a child pornography, there is a child abuse thing going on in the Supreme Court. And this whole WhatsApp did make some changes, but today origination, this whole forwarding, the tags of forwarding were a result of that intervention from India. But it's not enough. And today, all these platforms are not doing charity. They're all for-profit platforms. Please understand that. They make money from India. They're all showing users from India. And WhatsApp, in the case of WhatsApp, probably 500 million users, 500 million users from India. But when it comes to obeying the laws of India, they are openly defined. And, we're talking about Twitter, but let's talk about WhatsApp for a second. WhatsApp talking about privacy of users is as hypocritical as any statement you would ever hear in your life.
AKashdeep was raising his hand. Yeah.
Long story short, Niranjan.
Okay.
This is a fight for colonizing India. This is their attempt to dictate a platform on top of Indian laws. And as Indians, we should definitely not agree to that. We can get into the specifics of what law is correct or wrong, and there's a parliament to debate that. Twitter is not that parliament.
Okay, AKashdeep, yeah. What are you objecting to, AKashdeep?
Yeah, Niranjan, I have a very simple take. I'm not into the legality of it. All I want to ask you is, some time back, there was a similar issue with posts about Kumbh, which were duly deleted. So at that point of time, this app was fine for the government. Now, as regards this toolkit issue, suddenly this app has become anti-national, is it? All I want to ask you is, if the Congress, and I'm not a Congress supporter, let me be open about the fact that I'm a BJP supporter, but as a neutral participant in the debate and a member of this democracy of this country, I want to tell you, Congress went and showed their papers to the app and said, listen, this is what we had, and what is being shown was not what we have done. So they duly gave it a tag of misrepresentation. What is wrong with it? Why doesn't Mr. Sambit Patra go and show the documents and the matter ends? Why is the entire government getting behind this?
No, you're right.
We have other issues to handle.
AKashdeep, you're right.
Let Mr. Sambit Patra go and take his stand and let the matter be put to rest.
It should be put to rest.
The entire country, which was supporting this app for having deleted the Kumbh tweets, is now suddenly attacking it.
No, I'll tell you.
Eventually, you want all the apps to toe the line of the government in power. This is going to happen every 5 years in this country. I think we should grow up beyond that.
Yes, you're right. No, you're right.
Let the person concerned go and show his papers the way the Congress has shown and said that this is misrepresentation. And if it is true, you let it be followed, and then you talk about law.
Now I want to bring in Napinai, 1 second.
As common people hearing that the entire government is now chasing this app, and there are cries that I went and saw on social media, shut the app, when you could shut apps from China, shut this. These are social media apps. This is the power for people. Stop telling us to stop them. Stop telling us to control them. This is the first time the people of this world have power in their hands. Just let it be. That's
power
all I
of
have
the...
to say.
1 second. Sir, 1 second. I think you mistook it. Let me tell you. Very nice piece though. I mean, you try to make it about people's power, right? Let me ask you, AKashdeep, and Napinai can come in. Why didn't Twitter completely take down all of those handles and tweets when they spread fake news about genocide? When the farmers' protest happened, and I've come completely researched. Tell me, how is Twitter? You spoke about the people, right? AKashdeep, Napinai can take this. Napinai, please tell me, how is Twitter committed to people of India?
No, I'm finished.
Wait, I have not completed my question. Hear me out.
My point to you about people, Niranjan.
No, it is. No, I understood your point. I'm see, as journalists, we have to question both sides, and I'm questioning, we have some facts at hand.
I'll hear you, and then I'll tell you why I meant people.
Okay.
I want to hear you.
Now, see, Twitter has said it is committed to the people of India. In February, it refused to comply with the government's demand to block 250 accounts spreading provocative and harmful content on its platform. You told me something about Kumbh. I'm not even going there. But in February, they refused to comply with the government's demand to block 250 accounts that were spreading provocative and harmful content. How are you committed to the people back then? Wait, I have more. How is Twitter committed to the people of India when it refused to act on accounts instigating people by trending hashtags like Modi planning farmer genocide, which was encouraging more and more farmers to come out, which is the result of what has happened in the last few months. And today, thousands of people are still at Singhu and Tikri borders where COVID is spreading. 2 of them have died. Nobody is talking about it. Everybody likes to talk about Kumbh. Talk about Kumbh. Nobody is talking about the farmer protests and farmers dying and farmers gathering, not wearing masks, no social distancing. Last few days we've been showing... 1 second, hear me out. I am only questioning the double standards. Hear me out. Now, how is Twitter committed to people when the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology was asked Twitter to delete 1,200 accounts? Napinai, tell me if I'm wrong. 1,200 accounts which were flagged by security agencies as accounts of Khalistani sympathizers. Right? And they were spreading provocative content. No suo motu action was taken then. I don't remember seeing any of that, Napinai. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Thank you for this opportunity, Niranjan. See, I've heard everybody out. Everyone is continuously talking about Section 79 and safe harbor and exceptions to it and whatnot. What we are forgetting...
Let us speak. I'll come back to you, Akash. Akash, let us speak. I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you. Let us speak. I'll come back to you.
What everybody is
Let us speak. I'll come back to you. Yeah, I'll come back to you, my friend. Let us speak. No, Let us speak. No, don't speak out of turn. No, Akash.
Posted was a fact.
You know, Akash, don't speak out of turn. Let us speak.
Show it to them and
she's been waiting.
Akash,
let us speak. Okay, Akash. Okay, Akash, please. Akash. Akash and Varun Matthew.
The help for users. How is it anti-user for a grievance officer to be appointed in India to deal with the grievances of the users expeditiously? How is it anti-user to have somebody take down within 24 hours offensive content like revenge porn, rape videos, child sexual abuse content, etc.? We can't look at intermediary guidelines as if there are only two lenses, which is either correct or wrong. We need to understand that everything in law, as with life, revolves only around the gray area, which is maybe, it depends, right? Always. So we can't just start taking these kind of one-sided issues in this. On the issue that you raised specifically, Niranjan, in terms of the various tweets that have not been taken down, etc., one thing everybody has not pointed out in this entire debate is there is this assumption that this takedown within 36 hours is under the intermediary guidelines of 2021. But that is not the case. This has been there under the 2011 guidelines. It continues in the 2021 guidelines. Takedown of offensive, violative, illegal content is a very important right that accrues to the benefit of users. Sometimes I really worry about this fear psychosis that seems to be the best defense that, if I'm not just talking about Twitter here, but any social media platform seems to be using. That if we are made to comply with something, that we may disappear from India, you will be deprived of all this. No social media platform can afford to be out of India. They need Indian users, and the issue here is not about social media disappearing from India or continuing in India. The issue is about complying with local laws. And if you have a problem with it, it is not like the entire law has a problem. You have a problem with certain aspects of it, follow due process, raise it before a court, and get an order in your favor if you believe that you have a strong ground. Making general statements, creating some kind of fear psychosis about the rules, making generic allegations about stifling free speech is not really the right way forward. It actually doesn't help users. I have also been part of a lot of the process in terms of the implementation and the evolution of the intermediary guidelines, because it came out of a Supreme Court order that was passed in 2017, which I was part of. So it is not like a lot of protective or preventive measures have happened overnight. Some of these, including this aspect about automated tools, is something that is in cognizance before the Supreme Court. Warning ads for searches pertaining to child sexual abuse content or rape and gang rape videos is something that has evolved through our Indian Supreme Court. So that is not just a government action, but that is action that has come out of Supreme Court's intervention. So we need to look at the positives and not just keep focusing on negatives. As far as the negatives or the drawbacks are concerned, let's wait for judicial review to evaluate the constitutionality of it and to come back on that.
Yeah, Napin, I want to go back to the point I was making to Mr. Poovaiya, and I'll take that question to Varun Matthew. Varun, I'm reading out from a 2018 Supreme Court bench of Justices Madan Lokur and UU Lalit, who observed that the Government of India may frame, they said, and I quote, the Government of India may frame the necessary guidelines/SOP and implement them within 2 weeks so as to eliminate child pornography, rape and gang rape imageries, videos and sites in content hosting platforms and other applications. And I'm taking you back to the breaking news story. I'm telling you, rape and gang rape videos being forwarded on social media platforms, on these so-called intermediaries. We're getting videos, arrests have been made. I'm saying it is a real issue. You can't deny that it is happening.
So absolutely, that is a fundamental issue and it needs to be addressed. But just like you said, the Supreme Court asked the government to take action in this regard. The Supreme Court has also asked the government since 2017 to pass laws with regard to privacy. The government hasn't done it. Now, they've come out in 2021 with a set of rules, many of which these guidelines are acceptable provisions. They are the law of the land. But there are other huge problems with these rules. For instance, they go far beyond the scope of the Act. Some of my colleagues on this panel have already explained that. I'll give it with an analogy. An act is like a license for the government to make rules. If the act gives them a license to set up a Chinese restaurant, you can't go and set up a car factory. And in many cases, the government has gone far beyond the remit. Provisions of this act are vague. I mean, today, companies are wondering whether they are a social media intermediary because the definition is so vague. It says any entity that connects two or more people for the purpose of communication will be a social media intermediary. And then this goes far beyond the remit. So coming back to Twitter over here, all these social media platforms need to revamp their internal policies and how they govern their platforms. However, the issue here is twofold. One, whether Twitter can administer its own platform, and that's where you come to the whole manipulated media issue, where Twitter, according to its policies, says that if we feel that something is manipulated, we will work with fact checkers, etc. There are fact checkers that are internationally recognized who have come out and said that this toolkit document is manipulated. So they are following that, and they have put out something. There is nothing in the rules that says that the government can issue directions to them to take off a tag. The government, on the other hand, can ask them to take down content. And once that content is not taken down, the government can go ahead and block Twitter. And that's totally fine. So Twitter, of course, it needs to take a stand now. They need to go to court, file a petition, and seek a stay. For example, many media houses have done this. Live Law went to the Kerala High Court, and they got a stay. So they don't have to comply right now until the proceedings are completed. Twitter needs to do that. It can't exist in a vacuum. But one other point, Twitter is an entity operating here. It has many Indian employees. It is also entitled to certain rights. If it comes out and says, look, we believe that these laws violate the freedom of speech, I think that the government needs to have a little more thick skin. Recently, our Solicitor General said before the Supreme Court, he actually said, and I quote, let's not all be crybabies. And I mean, if I may offer the same advice of the Solicitor General back to the IT Ministry and the government, let's not be crybabies. There is an entity here, there's a company who's come out and said, your laws are violated. So let the courts decide. And if Twitter doesn't comply, block them. That's it.
Sanju Verma wanted to come in. Sanju, is it true that your government asked for Twitter to take down 50 tweets on the Kumbh and it happened? Did it happen? I mean, many of the panelists are saying that did it actually happen?
Niranjan, I've been listening patiently, and first and foremost, let me tell you categorically. Varun Matthews said that the government on some instances and in certain aspects has gone well beyond its brief. And before that, there was a lady panelist who said that, not everything is in black and white. It's not a binary. There are gray areas. Excuse me. There is something called legality, but at the same time, there is something called constitutional precedence, something called convention. I want to ask the panelists sitting here like Varun Matthews and the other lady, will any Indian social media platform like Kumbh be able to operate in the United States of America without adhering to the SEC guidelines that have been in existence since 1934? Will Kumbh be able to operate in the United Kingdom without adhering to the SEC counterpart guidelines called EDGAR? Will any Indian company like Kumbh be able to operate in China without adhering to the China Surveillance Commission norms? Will Kumbh be able to operate in Japan without adhering to the Japanese Surveillance Commission norms? No. So please stop taking the moral high ground.
I think they've all agreed to that.
Point number two. No. Let me tell you one more thing about this hypocrisy and government having a thick skin. Excuse me. How many tweets did you see talking about the Eid Sammelan in front of the Charminar in Hyderabad being talked off as a super spreader? I barely saw any tweets. But I saw many tweets blaming the Kumbh Mela as being one of the originators of the COVID settlement. Point number two, Twitter took down Donald Trump's tweets and deplatformed him after the January 6th insurrection in the United States of America. Twitter when there was an attempted insurrection from the ramparts of the Red Fort on 26 January 2021, it would have us believe that Twitter was standing for farmers' rights. So much for being a beacon of free speech. Twitter has been a repeat offender trying to indulge in doublespeak, hypocrisy, and the insurrection is just one of the examples. You, Niranjan, gave the example of Modi stands for genocide of farmers. This was a hashtag which ran for more than 72 hours before it was taken down. I did not see any of the August panelists here even make a mention of this. So excuse me, when you talk of thick skin, would you also tell us that have we outsourced freedom of speech? Have we outsourced the power to adjudicate? Have we outsourced the freedom of expression, which is guaranteed under Article 19, to any social media platform, be it Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, what have you? And I want to ask you, why does Twitter suffer from this illusion of grandeur? I mean, they're saying we want to build and empower the Indian public. Do you empower the Indian public by indulging in cancel culture? You summarily cancelled Kangana Ranaut. I'm not necessarily a huge fan of her, but the fact is, have you had the guts to cancel out Sharjeel Usmani, who says blatantly that all Ram Bhakts are terrorists? So basically, Twitter wants to have this attitude of my way or the highway, and that's not going to work. Twitter says we want to engage in constructive dialogue and collaborative approach. Of course, we want to engage in constructive dialogue and collaborative approach because the government is one of the primary stakeholders, but not at the expense of India's territorial integrity, sovereignty. Does anyone from the panel here, the Supreme Court lawyers, Varun Matthew, do you remember a truncated map of India was put out on Twitter with no mention of Jammu and Kashmir? Do you agree Jammu and Kashmir is an integral part of India? If yes, how did Twitter have the audacity to put out that truncated map?
It's funny that
and it took them more than a week before they took it down. Stop waxing eloquent.
Okay, Sanju, let her respond. Let him respond to you. You've made your point. Let him respond. You've made your point. Let him respond. Okay. You know, Sanju,
cannot give Twitter a carte.
I got your point. You made a very powerful point. Let him respond. Varun responding to Sanju. Yes.
See, it's funny how Sanju Verma has these stock issues that she keeps bringing up, about certain community commentators from certain religions or Kangana Ranaut or even the Kashmir issue. That's what not I the said issue here. Social media. If you want to let me respond.
Sanju, let him finish. Sanju, you can respond. Let him finish. No, Sanju, one second. Sanju, not required. Let him finish. Sanju, let him finish. Let him finish.
Problem and insurrection.
1 second. Okay, Varun, wait. Varun, wait.
And I will tell you,
Sanju, give him 30 seconds. Okay, give him 30 seconds. Sanju, you also judged. Sanju, you have judged their interventions. Let them make their response. No, you have judged their interventions. Let them respond. Let them respond, Sanju.
I'm indulging in grandiose statements.
1 second. Sanju, everyone is indulging everybody else now. Come on, we all have to indulge each other. No, we're all on the same panel. 1 second. Varun. Okay, just Sanju, give him a chance, na Sanju.
Let me.
I have 8 minutes and I have 8 panelists. I'm hoping to give everybody a second chance, please.
They make profits in India.
Okay, Sanju, got your point.
Look at the Indian government saying, "Oh my God."
I got your point, but you are not letting him respond. Sanju, you need to let him respond. Okay, Sanju, I'll give you. Okay, wait. If this goes well, you will get another chance. Varun, your 1 minute starts now.
See, there are fundamental problems with the way social media platforms operate. For every allegation that Sanju Verma brings up, such as the genocide allegations, hashtags during the farmers' protest, there have also been massive issues during the Delhi riots, where certain politicians made statements that are widely perceived to have sparked these riots. And in both cases, one involved Facebook, the other one involves Twitter. There are issues here that need to be resolved. That is not what we're talking about. We're talking about the government passing a law in an improper manner. We're talking because the government's job is not to pass laws. It can pass rules. It is delegated certain powers by parliament. You cannot skip parliament. And that is something that this government has been doing for years. They have been disguising legislations, putting in provisions that have no basis in rules and passing it through a subsidiary legislation, which is problematic. I think Twitter should go back and rethink their legal strategy. They should either challenge these rules. They should also bring in place better mechanisms. But just one thing about this 3-month issue, it's not easy to change your underlying technology within a span of 3 months and redo everything. So if a social media company comes and asks for an extension, that can be considered by the IT ministry, and they can consider it on merits and choose to dismiss it. We do that all the time. Every year our tax deadlines are extended. Compliance deadlines in every other field are extended. So we need to look at this as a compliance issue and stop thinking about whether...
Your 1 minute ends now. Srijit is responding now. Srijit, is it unconstitutional?
Niranjan, the funny thing is that I heard a couple of arguments which sound really funny. One is that regarding the toolkit, if the Congress can go to Twitter and confirm them, prove that this was manipulated content indeed, why can't Sambit Patra and BJP go and prove the same thing? The first and foremost simple thing that we need to understand is Twitter is no court of law. Twitter is not, it's only an intermediary, it's not a dispute settlement platform. And if at all they think they are or they can potentially be one, they should comply to the rules by appointing a chief compliance officer. Simple, abide by the rules. The second point, Varun Matthew's point, that courts have always ruled since 2017 that privacy is a fundamental right. Agree. But the same court, the Supreme Court and multiple courts in the 4 years after that have also claimed, have categorically said on record that fundamental right, whether it is privacy, it's not absolute in courts, which means that it is subject to certain conditions. Now, if you go to the rules that are passed, in section 4.4, it says what type of content you can track. Very clearly says anything in the form depicting rape, child sexual abuse or contact, explicit or implicit, and content which has already been removed. Very simple, sir. So for this is not actually breaking.
Okay, your 1 minute ends now. Let me go across to Sergeant Puvaya. Mr. Puvaya, coming back to the point I was making, if we had this rules, and in place, and if everybody had adhered to this today we would have been discussing that story that I just mentioned. I want to go back to that story because tomorrow is going to be the biggest headline. And it's being circulated on WhatsApp. From Assam, the police has tweeted the arrests have happened in Bangalore. There is so much of fake news going around, but it is happening. People are spreading these videos on platforms.
Yes, fake news, etc. Really, this is not the first time that after these rules that fake news have become an issue. The Supreme Court had considered it. The previous rules also have a scenario that when it comes to egregious information such as pornography, etc., they must be taken down. Should an intermediary platform comply and, of course, provide material to the investigating officers? Answer is yes. With or without these rules, even under the previous regime, the answer is yes. Now, why is this heated debate today? That is because citizens in this country use these intermediary platforms to express their views. In a democratic polity, it is not the job of the government to keep the citizens under control. It is the job of the citizens to keep government under control. Therefore, when a government makes rules to control a platform, which is actually giving voice to the citizenry, they have to make sure that those rules are reasonable and can be implemented. Now, if an intermediary does not comply with the rules, 100% such intermediaries must be prosecuted. They must actually be made to, of course, pay in terms of the methods known to law. So therefore, let's wait. The rules have come into force. Some intermediaries have gone to court. Some are entering into a dialogue. Some are pushing back. It is only time that can say as to what the methodology will be that the government should do. The question is, can the government muzzle them down? Answer is no.
Okay, Arvind Gupta.
Within the corners of the law.
Okay, let me go to Arvind Gupta. Arvind Gupta, somebody spoke about being thick-skinned. There are two ways of handling it, right? There's one platform that is fighting it out legally in the court. There's another platform that is claiming victim, issuing statements. That is also about being thick-skinned. Where do you see this issue going now?
The first platform is hypocritical. The second platform is the judge, jury, executioner. Where is the freedom of speech aspect that is being curtailed? So, in my opinion, because we have 60 seconds, very simply put, this is the new digital form of the East India Company. These platforms are ganging up against India. They're all acting as if their user base and their policies will protect them, and their policies are above the laws of the country. They follow a lot of these laws in their home countries in US, in Europe, in Germany, in many other countries. But when it comes to India, they are trying to say that we are above the law. And to me, that is the most concerning thing. This is a new form of digital colonization. They have resisted most of the moves that India has done. Easy compliances they have not complied with. And
very limited time, Arvind. Just want to get two more voices if you don't mind. Napinai, Google is complied, Facebook is complying, Coup has already complied. Now, do you think the rest should follow? 30 seconds. I want to quick give the others also a chance. Yeah.
This, Niranjan. You have a law of the land. It has to be complied with. Your only option, if you do not want to comply with it, is to go before court and contest it. You had 3 months to do that. 3 months were enough to comply with. And when you're talking about the rules, there are two different kinds of issues here. One is an administrative compliance, like appointing certain people like the grievance officer, etc. And the other is an architectural compliance. If you had a problem with architectural compliance, you needed to show good faith by first complying with that which you could and then seeking time for the rest. If you haven't shown good faith and if there is some consequences of it, you face it. So the issue here is not about has Indian government exceeded its right? It may have. It definitely has in part 3 of the intermediary guidelines. We are not on that debate today. But
Run out of time. I'm sorry for this. Special sorry to Tausif and AKashdeep. Sorry, I just don't have the time. AKashdeep, Srijit, Napinai, Varun, Sajan, Arvind, Sanju, Tausif. Special sorry to you and AKashdeep. I couldn't give you another chance to intervene. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, coming up at 10 p.m. We have our dedicated broadcast from across India, getting you reports on how states are fighting back. We promise to get you continuous coverage of India's COVID-19 battles. Coming up next.